I'll go into now discussing the model that Dan Goleman and company created with regard to emotional intelligence. And as we said in the previous slide, there are four components of self awareness, social awareness, self management, and social skills. In the first component, we're going to talk about the idea of self awareness. And under self awareness, there are three items there that they list as skills that a particular person needs to have. They need to have emotional self awareness. And this is what I call the awareness thinking cap. For you look at yourself, or the leader looks at themselves and go, am I aware of my emotions? Uh, they need to have an accurate self assessment. Uh, a lot of folks have a very high assessment of themselves, and some don't have a very high assessment of themselves. But in order to be a leader, need to have an accurate self-assessment so that you know what your capabilities are. And this begets, if you will, the idea of having self-confidence, so that knowing who you are, what you can do, what your background is, and particularly what it is you want to do, will make you a better leader for the folks that you're trying to disciple. The next area is social awareness, and in this particular area, I call this the environment. When you look on the environment that the people that you're discipling or the people that you're leading, you know what's what's that person going through in their particular life. It may require you to have some empathy with regard to where they came from and where they are and where they're going to go. But you need to develop a skill set called empathy that allows you to reach into that person and understand who they are and why they are where they are. The other thing is organizational awareness. Now, this may be the structure of the organization, such as our church, or it may be in an organization that has politics. Oh, wait, we we can have politics in a church, can't we? Not everybody agrees. Sometimes all we can do is agree to disagree. But we need to understand the environment that a person coming into the church or someone you're trying to disciple is going through, and be able to answer those questions and be a co defendant for them in difficult times. The other part is service orientation, understanding what type of services that we as a church perform as missions and as ministries and as outreach and so forth, and being able to understand the operations within the church so that they know where the resources are and where they can get help or where they can go and help. The next area is called self-management. Now, under self-management, uh, here's what I call skill and practice and attitude. Here in self-management, each of these under self-control, some folks do that better than others, depending upon how emotional they get. There's an idea called trustworthiness that needs to be developed and maintained and absolutely defended. Now, trustworthiness is a kind of a combination of things that people look at when you're a leader. The Greeks used to call it ethos, pathos, and logos, and meaning that you look like you're sincere and that you are in fact telling them the truth and can be relied upon. The other one is conscientiousness, meaning that you're dedicated, that you're focused, that you're committed, that you're uh, obeying the current path that's laid out before them, so that as the disciples come along, you are modeling, if you will, the idea of discipleship. Uh, some of the things we all have some difficulty doing is being adaptable. That's particularly for change. Some of us don't like change. We need to develop the idea within ourselves, our availability to be able to embrace change when it's appropriate and be steadfast when it's not. That's part of our job. We need to be achievement oriented. What did Christ ask us to do? He said, make disciples, go into the ends of the world and make disciples in all nations. That's the achievement. How do we measure that achievement? Well, you look at, are we making disciples? And that's got to be the focus of what we do. And in doing that, we need to develop some type of initiative when in fact it's the idea that our goal is to make disciples. How is it that we do that in Papillion, in Omaha, in Bellevue, in Nebraska, in the United States, at home, at work, at play? We need to take the initiative to understand that Jesus wants us to make disciples, and how is it that we do that? Now, some of the things that we need to look at to do that would be under what we call social skills. Now, this is a core four-quadrant model that Dan Coleman put together. I bet you're getting tired of seeing four quadrants. But under social skills, the whole idea here is that we need to have skills about developing others, and that's a whole new subject in itself. And how is it that you develop another person? Well, you do it by leadership, but you also do it by mentoring. You also do it by showing the example and so forth. But you need to have the skill to understand what is needed and how to develop. Certainly, leadership skills are involved in the social skills. You need to have some type of influence. You can have, as we've seen in the last few models that we looked at, the influence had actually whether or not you have particular standing within the organization, like an elder or a deacon or ministry leader or a mission leader, or if you want to take it into the private sector, there could be the boss, could be the person in charge, and so forth. You need to certainly understand communications. There's all kinds of ways out there for people to communicate better. Peter Drucker said one of the best ways to communicate is to keep your mouth shut. I always use the idiom that in order for a person is measured by three things: what they look like, what they act like, and what they say. And I always said that if you dress sharp and keep your mouth shut, you're ahead of the game. You need to understand about change and help be the catalyst for that change when it's appropriate. I don't think that all change is necessary. Sometimes the devil likes to get in and create some chaos within our brothers and sisters, and sometimes that chaos is disguised as change. And we as Christians and disciples of Christ need to understand when it is appropriate to change and when it's not. And if it's true that they need to have a change, then we need to step behind it and move it ahead. That falls right into the next thing. Well, people don't like change. You also have to understand about conflict management. And conflict management within the disciple mentoring things that you'll be doing is getting a person unconflicted from their particular views, their ideas, their idea about a particular program or a person within the church, or how we're doing things, and anything can come up here, but you have to be able to understand how to manage the conflict appropriately. The most important thing is we need to complete building blocks, and building bonds, and the bonds have all to do with relationships. And we just looked at a tri-dimensional leadership model where we evaluated a particular leader with regard to the least preferred coworker scale. Do you guys remember that? Well, the building blocks help understand what's going right and what's going wrong. And finally, the other thing is called teamwork and collaboration. We need to be a team. We're all brothers and sisters. Christ told us what to do. He didn't always tell us how to do it, though. But we also know that we are a team, and we need to collaborate together in order to move ahead with the idea that we're out there to make disciples. Sometimes I look at the New Testament, particularly the book of Acts, and I look at the people that were doing the leading and look at the activities they were doing, and particularly Paul. And boy, I'll tell you, sometimes Paul didn't have a lot of teamwork going on, and and there were sometimes some difficulties in collaborating. And I think it's true today as well as that. Next, I want you to look at a yet another model, and this is a model I created to kind of make sense out of all of this self-awareness, self-management, social skills, and so forth, and put it into a diagram that I think will solidify these concepts just a little bit. The leadership that you see below here, I created to represent what I believe are the observable characteristics of a successful leader. Fillmore Sanford says the most crucial factor in a leadership event are followers. Followers in any situation are vital, not only because individuals they accept or reject the leader, but because the group actually determines whatever personal power that leader has. Now, earlier in these presentations, I presented the notion that uh, leadership is a gift, and that gift comes from the people being led. And we'll see here that uh, there's all kinds of quotes I can put in here. But if the people don't want to follow you, you're not leading. Sometimes I tongue in cheek when somebody asks me to describe what his leader is. I'm say if a leader turns around and nobody's behind him, he's not a leader. Now Paul Drucker or Peter Drucker has another one. He says in the simplest form, the leadership is explained that the only definition of leader is someone who has followers. And I agree with that. Uh, he goes on to say, though, regardless of the leader's own individual abilities or greatness, that without followers, there can be no leaders. Now, Peter Drucker, I'll have some quotes later here, but he just would he nails things that he takes a whole semester of college work and nails it down into one or two sentences. The one thing that you need to understand is that Peter Drucker also said something that I think is remarkable. Uh, he said leadership is a achievement of trust, and I think that's absolutely important. Yeah. Now, most of the businesses I've worked in with the frontline team leads are responsible for directing the team activities and also coaching and mentoring and teaching those things. I believe that in order to be in emotional intelligence, in order to be a great leader, uh, the underpinnings of this is the idea of a social and professional standing within the organization or within the endeavor that you're working with. And as an example, as a disciple maker, uh, you're going to need to be a coach. You're going to need to be a mentor. You're going to need to be a teacher. And this means that you have to manage and skill and have knowledge. And you also have to have social or professional standing. In the brothers' terms, I like to think of social standing as the powers derived by the position of authority or organization. And professional standings are the powers earned by demonstrating field competencies and awarded to the leader by the followers. So social standing may be a position, if you will, of authority, a deacon, an elder, a staff member, a mission chief, but in professional, this is one that's earned and is given to you, awarded to you by the people that are following you. I agree with I agree with a guy named Richard Boytes in a book he called Competent Manager, and he says a model for organizational effectiveness when he observed that no leader encountered, no matter how outstanding, has strengths across the board of every one of these EIs. No one has all of this across the board. And in fact, in order to be successful, individuals that I talk about emotional intelligence, a highly effective leader needs to be strong in at least 6 of these 20 competencies you see up here. Actually, there's 24. These 20 competencies. So you have to plug and play and understand which one of these things you are comfortable with. Uh, so here's what here's how I read this. If you're going to coach, you need to have some transparency, some optimism, trustworthiness, and influence. If you're going to mentor somebody, you need to develop others by building blocks and be adaptable. If you're teaching, you need to understand conflict management, teamwork and collaboration, and change catalyst. Now, this all goes into managing skill and knowledge. So if you get to a social professional, if you don't have technical or social standing, they're not going to follow you. The whole idea here about awareness now, as we go up this triangle here, is this is called for emotional self-awareness, accurate self-assessment, and self-confidence. On the other side, it means that you need to have empathy, organizational awareness, and service orientation. If you don't know where you're going, you can't lead. Pivotal to all of this is ownership. If you're not responsible for the results, you can't lead. This is where initiative, conscientiousness, and achievement orientation are demonstrated. And then finally, you need to have leadership for inspirational leadership. Each of these are built upon the ideas of emotional intelligence. We can, as we look at this last model here, it was my hope that by looking at the putting your thinking cap on, looking at skills practice, looking at the environment, interacting with the current slide with particular skills that are highlighted here in the dark part here. As you go through this, you can look at the leaders that you were led by. You can look at the groups that you were leading, and then do a self-assessment here of understanding whether you were coaching them, whether you were mentoring them, or whether you were teaching them. And in doing that, what particular influence do you have? Was it a social influence or a professional influence? Was it technical or social? Were you on your game by being aware of yourself and the people you're leading? Did you own the result? Did you own the outcome? We're talking about making disciples. Do we own making disciples? When we make a disciple, do we say, "Yep, that's a disciple," and understand that we had a part in doing that? Do you own it in your heart? Is that one of your achievements? Are you oriented at creating disciples? Are you conscientious about creating disciples? Are you creating initiatives that do that? And are you inspiring other leaders? So this is the whole idea behind emotional intelligence. Now, we're going to be able to use this, and we can continue on now on the next set of slides, that we can now finish building the tri-dimensional leadership model that we started way back since we talked about the DISC personality traits, and then the emotional intelligence skills and attributes. we can go ahead and finish this particular model, which will complete the first two sections of the three-section uh, course that we're developing. If you have any questions, please give me an email and let me know if I can answer them. Thank you.